Here's the story. Basically, I live in Westmoreland County of Pennsylvania. For a while, actually, there's been strange occurrences around, but recently, the most real and convincing occurrence that there is a cryptid. Basically, my girlfriend vacationed at a place where there was known to be SENECA tribes, so I don't know if she brought back something. Anyway, she's over tonight, and I live with another friend, FYI. Anyway, we take our dog out, and our motion lights aren't triggered, when all of a sudden, there's a hiss right next to us, and the bushes shake, and we rush the dog in, as we have no idea what it could be, as this area is prone to raccoons and deer and some coyotes. Me and my friend go outside with weapons and flashlights, as we have a dog, and is partially blind and has a bad leg, so we can't risk him getting attacked. Along with that, there's a guy in our rather wooded community that has a brain issue and tends to wander at night. So with that in mind, we go outside and we hear a bird call. Remind you, it's 1 a.m. We hear this bird call non-stop. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm being lured by a skinwalker or the crazy dude, so we go inside and look out our patio window only to see a deer at our fence line. The deer's back legs looked mangled. I kid you not. It actually looked like it's walking with its back legs turned backwards. There's a deer that roams back there that has a broken leg, but only one, and he's always with the family. Anyway, we see this deer, but when it first looks at us with the flashlight on its eyes, they are green. It puts its head down and stares at us, and we shine the light around and back on it, and its eyes are now red. When they go back to green, at that point, I'm convinced this is a skinwalker. It turns and is walking around. It isn't listening to me screaming to leave, so I call it a Navajo witch. I don't know why I didn't know what to get its attention, but I kid you not, it turned its head and stuck its neck up so freakishly long and stared at me. I actually got spooked. I'm a pretty religious dude who often ghost hunts and goes to creepy abandoned spots, but I kid you not, I kinda heart dropped. So at this point, I go and get my silver cross and shine the flashlight on the cross so it can see the cross shining, and it immediately looks away. And I tell that if it can't cross the fence line because I don't give it permission, and it knows it can't beat the one that's on the cross, it straight up walked away and didn't look back. I come back inside. My friend goes to sleep, and I go into my bedroom where my girlfriend is asleep. I lay down next to her, and her eyes out on the back of her head. I wake her up, and it turns out she was having a sleep paralysis episode, and she had 2 other sleep paralysis episodes during the entire time that me and my friend were outside. I'm wondering if there's some cryptid who is attacking her mind while distracting us, or by coincidence, did I happen to have a raccoon hiss at us, or someone do a bird call? We see a mangled red-eyed deer, and my girlfriend all have sleep paralysis within a 2-hour period. I'm asking this as I'm pretty knowledgeable of demons and stuff, but I don't think you ward the 2 things off the same way. The deer essentially looked like it had the posture of a crab. It did not have the thick thighs in the back like a deer does. It has the legs that looked backwards and mangled. I know it could all be a coincidence, it just seems a little weird. Also, I'm aware skinwalkers are pretty much Navajo exclusive or whatever, but I don't know what else to call something like that. I'm not really sure if this is a true story or not, but I thought you'd like to hear it. Skinwalkers are not some mystical fantasy creatures. No, they are evil witches who like to cause pain and misfortune on others, and who may even cause death. In order to get their powers, they have to sacrifice somebody they most love. The more they sacrifice, the more powers they get. This is an old story that happened in the 40s or the 50s, about a man who lived with his sheep and his dog in the middle of nowhere in his hogan. For weeks, he heard and saw strange things happening around him, like a black shadow running, knocking on his house, a man's cough, and his sheep missing and later found dead and mutilated, until he found his dog dead. Tired and afraid of this, he went to a medicine man. They told the medicine man that he was experiencing. He blessed the man and told him to cover himself with ash, leave no part uncovered, and to sit outside his house with a rifle and to wait for it to come. And when you see it, you'll know when you see it. you shoot at it, and it will leave you alone. So the man did as asked. He waited in the dark for a long time before he heard it. Something was coming towards his house. When he looked to his left, he saw a dog or a coyote. He knew it then for what it was. He slowly raised the rifle and aimed it at the dog creature and shot at it. The scary part was when the bullet hit it, instead of a dog cry, the dog creature let out the scream of a man who had just gotten shot, and the dog creature immediately turned and ran away. After that, the man didn't see no strange thing again. He even got a new dog. He fought with a skinwalker and won. At the time this story takes place, I was 14, almost 15, and a sophomore in high school. I've never had a paranormal encounter in my life, but I still somewhat believed in the paranormal. This is the first close encounter I have ever had in my life. In case you don't know what a skinwalker is, they're people that can morph into an animal of their choice and originate from Navajo legends. I'll go further into depth about why I think this encounter was a skinwalker later in the story. So, I was at my cousin's house with both of my stepbrothers, and all of us were really into Nerf guns at the time. I'll refer to my cousin as T, my older stepbrother is J, and my younger is A. For our entertainment, we decided to split up into two teams and have what we called a Nerf war, very creatively. The goal of the game was to knock down both of our opponents by hitting them once with a Nerf bullet, as it was pretty difficult to accomplish. Once the person had been shot, they were out of the game and not able to be revived. And once both of them had been shot, the game had been won by the other team. Simple enough. The boundaries were a couple of blocks long, which included a nearby park that we liked to stay at and hide from the other team. Because it was getting dark, we had to leave my cousin's house soon. We decided to have another quick round. We watched as T and A ran in the direction of a nearby ditch, so Jay and I decided to run towards the park, which was behind us. We ran for a couple of minutes until we reached the huge fake rock that had a slide on top, and we decided to camp up there. For a few minutes we sat there, waiting to see them try to sneak up on us, because they knew that we were at the park. Jay and I noticed that there was a dog next to the jungle gym, walking around aimlessly, and we thought that maybe it was T's Chihuahua. However, we heard somebody call its name, and realized that there was a guy standing in the nearby garden. Naturally, we didn't think much of it, except how it was creepy that he was just standing there. I tried to rationalize and told Jay that he was probably watering the plants, despite the fact that he obviously wasn't. Before we could realize, the man was gone, but again, we thought nothing of it. Out in the field next to the park, I spotted two figures lying down next to a hill, T and A. Jay and I split up. I hid behind a row of bongos and we hid behind a nearby rock. After a few moments of silence between us, I told him that we should move into the nearby brush and stalk them from afar, but he refused. Out of nowhere, we heard a loud screech coming from the nearby brush. We thought it was some type of bird, specifically an eagle, but I also suspected it could be a coyote. A few moments later, I was looking up and admiring the sky when I noticed a shooting star, which I initially thought was a plane. I'm not sure whether it has any significance to the story, but you'll find out why I think it might be later. From that point on, we both had very strange feelings that we were being watched by somebody or something. I had very weird tingling sensations that started at my feet and went up to my chest multiple times, and Jay said he had a burning chest pain that lasted for a long while, to the point where he could barely run. After we left our spot and were going to take a back route to T's house, we heard the screech again, but it sounded like it came from where we were hiding. Ultimately, we won the match, but our parents were looking for us and we had to leave his house. T decided to spend the night at our house, as we were waiting for him in the car. A asked if we too heard the screech. We started to discuss what we had thought it was, and we all agreed that it was some kind of eagle. However, after discussing it with T, he told us what he had encountered. When they were in the field stalking us, T said he heard the screech right in his ear, which is nowhere near where we heard it. After that, he said he felt like somebody was behind him, and he turned to see what was bothering him. Right as he did, he said he was drawn to the same shooting star we saw. After we had left the park, which they weren't aware of, they said they both heard Jay's voice calling desperately out for A, his brother, thinking he might have been hurt. T decided that he should go help, but something just felt off. They ultimately decided to go back to the house. Looking back, we learned why if they didn't make that decision, they would have been as good as dead. T said that he had the exact same feelings as we did while making his way back to the house. Because I was a big fan of horror stories and had heard much about skinwalkers, I asked them if they thought it could possibly be a skinwalker, but nobody really thought so. I decided to do some research, and we all realized that a skinwalker fits the situation perfectly. First of all, an eagle is one of the most common forms that skinwalkers take, which would explain how we all thought the screech came from an eagle. Secondly, both teams heard the screech at different locations, and skinwalkers are known to move extremely quick. Third, they can morph into familiar faces and also imitate voices, which would explain how they heard Jay's voice calling out after we left the park. Lastly, they can actually dig through your mind and know what your fears are, and T was always afraid of people getting hurt while we were playing. That night, we were all extremely scared because of all the videos and stories we watched about skinwalkers. However, the final piece to the puzzle was when I woke up to A standing in the doorway, crying. Our dog had died the night before in her sleep. According to one of the many sources I found, I read that some skinwalkers are able to poison the loved ones of their victims after an encounter. What do you guys think? Do you think what I encountered was an actual skinwalker, or was it just a huge coincidence?